Abuse of prescription drugs by young people is on the rise, and the CSRA is not immune to this very real issue.
A lot of young people think prescription drugs are less risky because they're prescribed by a doctor. Preventing domestic violence, it is the goal of a panel comprised of some heavy hitters, the state's attorney general, law enforcement agencies, and advocacy groups.
Hi everyone. 4 years after the invasion of Iraq, it's a good time to take stock. Since the war began, 3,192 U.S. troops have been killed, more than 24,000 wounded. At least 50,000 Iraqi civilians have died.
It's war.
Welcome to W.A.R. W.A.R. We're all recovering. I'm your host, Stryker, and I'm joined today by my brother, John, the 1SV from the Swaggy Vets. If you guys don't know. You got to check them out. Swaggy Vets on YouTube. Excellent podcast, group of guys, great guests, great show overall. John, what's going on, my boy?
I'm good, brother. Thanks for having me on the show, man. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. Guys, y'all already know what war is about. This show is about the war people don't see, the war after service, the war after identity changes, the war between who you were and who you are becoming. Feel me? Today's guest is somebody who understands that war, who chose to turn it into creation instead of silence. Peter Gunn is a United States Air Force veteran who served 20 years. He's a poet. Check this out, guy. A poet, a musician, a bodybuilder, and a creator focused on bringing epic storytelling back into modern culture. At 7 years old, Peter experienced a near-death moment that shaped how he views purpose. At 12, he dealt with childhood obesity and learned discipline early. Later, becoming a father made him question why the feminine voice was missing from traditional heroic stories. That question led him to create the Amazons, a lyrical epic centered on feminine heroism. It also led to the Keropes curse, rooted in ancient South American mythology. And later, the Sigma Squad graphic novel series inspired by ancient Gnostic texts and spiritual duality. Peter, welcome to W.A.R. I appreciate you being here. Let's get into it.
Thank you for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. It really is. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Peter, let's start. You shared that at 7 years old, you experienced a heat stroke and a near-death moment. How did that experience shape how you see purpose and responsibility today?
Well, one thing I brought from it that this would be every day I woke up is, number one, I have an angelic mandate to be here because they sent me back. So they said my job isn't done. And number two, don't think for 1 second that you're not going to be judged, because you are. Okay? Let all your listeners know that they are going to be judged. I know atheists like to think of it as, denied responsibility. Like, I could do whatever I want and not be judged, because when judgment comes, they're scared of it. They really are. They hold on to their atheist beliefs sort of like a small child holds on to their the whoopee or their favorite stuffed animal. They don't want to let go of it.
Right, that's kind of powerful right there, brother. Yes, I didn't even think of it, because it shows your awareness started early. A lot of people don't start asking those questions until that trauma hits later, later in life. Kind of like me, but I'm not going to get into
it. So Peter, when you dealt with childhood obesity at a young age, how did overcoming that shape your discipline and your mindset in life?
Well, we went to several doctors. Now, granted, I'm only 5'3", okay, and I was about 12 years old when I was at my biggest, and at that height, I was 230 pounds, so I was extremely big, okay? You could say morbidly obese for my age, and I started doing my homework. My mother took me out to the doctors, and they had, everyone had a different idea, diet, exercise, of course, we went with what we knew or what they told us, and we went with the food pyramid. but it wasn't working for me. So I decided, okay, I need to take matters into my own hands and start doing my own research. That's not based on the latest greatest fad in the magazine shelf and the bodybuilding literature and fitness literature, but then go look at scientific research, actual legitimate facts and figures. So I had to go pick up the books at the library that were 4 inches thick and had a layer of dust on them that nobody looked at. After a lot of research, I figured out that, basically, comes down to it is the food pyramid is a psyop. Okay, they want to keep us sick, and it should be actually turned the other way. It should be upside down. When I started eating that way, I started losing the weight, started feeling better. And I'm like, what's going on here? According to them, this shouldn't be happening, but here it is. Yeah.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense right there. I used to personal train back in the day, and I think one of the most important things I used to tell the individuals that I trained is go and research and read for yourself.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be invested if I just keep telling you what to do, but when you learn what to do, it's embedded in you.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So that when you said that makes sense to me. Like you got to learn, and it becomes a part of you. You can't get rid of that knowledge that easy then.
Oh, I personally trained for a little while myself, and I was trying to always push my clients to get to the point where they don't need me anymore. But unfortunately, that never really seemed to happen.
Right. And then it kind of make you, once you do start memorizing that stuff and it's in you, it makes you want to do it. So that makes a lot of sense.
And doing more and more, not stopping, keep going.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. So, Peter, I want to get a little bit into your military, your Air Force service. You honorably served for 20 years. How did that level of structure influence you? Your creativity instead of, suppressing it?
Well, okay, we started to learn discipline back at 12, because I had to instill food discipline myself. And then at 16, when I was first legally allowed to, I started walking into a gym. Okay, and that was the school gym at my high school. And that's where I first fell in love with bodybuilding. Okay, and that's when I started lifting weights, and it appealed to a creative side inside of me to be able to build and mold the body as if it were a piece of clay. But you don't get instantaneous results. You're months, years, but it still appealed to me. And discipline started being instilled in me at that young age. So when I finally went into the military, went into boot camp, I remember in the Air Force we call them training instructors, and I believe in the Army they call them drill instructors, but they were pissed at me because number one, they saw the smile on my face, they saw I was having a good time, I was enjoying it. It was a vacation for me. I was already in shape. They were not testing me at all, and it pissed them off. It made them feel like they're not doing their job because everything they threw at me, I just threw back at them like it was nothing. Yeah, so it's though towards the end they got me. They did get me. I will admit that. There was a very bright young man. I will never forget his name, Trady Manis, and I guess he's like the Air Force. He really needed this guy because he scored towards the top of the ASVAB. So he's very intelligent, but he was failing the PT test. He'd been recycled 3 times, and they gave him to me like, "Man, here, if he doesn't pass, you don't pass boot camp." I get the
What?
It's your job. That's not my job. It's your job. But it was my job all of a sudden, and I had a long talk with him. We had to do some figuring out. Apparently, he didn't understand the concept that you push through the pain. He stopped every time it started hurting when he started running or started exercising, and he stopped. I guess he's a very pampered young man. Okay, his parents never pushed him to do anything. So once we got that out of the way, we stayed extra hours every day, and we got it knocked out. We got him to pass his PT test. But yeah, I found it funny because it was one of those things where that should never happen, but it did. And to this day, I believe he retires at E9. So it was just wonderful to see that. Yeah.
That's kind of hilarious. So do you think they actually would have recycled you along with him if he fell?
Oh yeah, they're not going to give out threats. What?
That's kind of crazy.
Back in the day. Now this is back in the early 2000s, late 90s. So now I don't know. rules change, but the further back you go, the more like, oh yeah, they'll get rid of you if you watch it. Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of crazy. And Peter, I just wanted to, the Army is drill sergeants unless they changed it, and the Marines are drill instructors, I believe.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Yes,
One
sir.
MV.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So Peter, what
Okay.
initially
Okay.
inspired you to go into the Air Force?
Well, I was curious. I've always felt it especially after my NDE. Okay, I've always felt the need to serve humanity. Now, when I was younger, I was an altar boy, and it was a time when I was actually looking into becoming a priest. But then I started studying the failings within the Catholic Church. We were old school Roman Catholic. I had to learn Latin and then speak the Mass in Latin. Um, we, I would say that after we had to, the priest had offered us altar wine before Mass behind the altar, and the altar boys were drinking it, and I remember going out there and I was drunk and having to serve Mass when I was drunk. After that transpired, I realized, like, okay, number one, this isn't a good man. Number two, this is the type of organization that I want to be associated with. And that sort of soured it for me. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. And then I realized, like, wait a minute, this priest is a boss. And his boss is fully aware of what he's doing. So the bishop knew what he was doing. So then it was compromised at several levels. I'm like, yeah. And I walked away from the church at that point.
Mm. How old were you then?
That was about 12. I was about 12.
Oh man,
It was about 10 to 12ish when I was serving. Yeah.
that's a traumatic experience in itself.
And it later came out nothing happened to me, but that later came out that
Right.
priest was having, so we say, this was younger boys, unfortunately.
Wow. So you experienced
That's
this at
terrible.
yeah. So you experienced this at 12, and you joined. What age did you join the Air Force?
I came in a little bit later. Initially, went into the Air National Guard. Now, to make up my mind, I highly suggest to any young recruits out there listening that are thinking about going into the military for career that they do this. Go to your local VFW and talk to all the old vets and try to get one for at least one from each service. Because I asked them, Army, Navy, Marines, Army, what if you had to do it all over again? Where would you go? And everyone said unanimously said the Air Force. Even the Army guy said my knees would be a lot better off if I had gone to the Air Force. Yeah. So that's what made me go. But I initially, like, okay, I'm going to go, but I'm going to sort of like just test the waters, put my toe in there, see how it is. So I initially went to the Air National Guard. Okay. And I worked that for a little while, and then I then when you're doing that, you have to wait for a boot camp slot. Okay, so I finally went to boot camp, and you guys know what happened there. And I came back for boot camp, and like, hey, I want to go active duty, and they looked at me like I'm crazy, like, what? Are you serious? And I decided to go active duty from that point, and I didn't look back. I loved it. I enjoyed it.
Hey, Peter, ask me if I had to do it all over, what branch would I join?
Okay, if you had to do it over, what branch?
I'll join the Air Force. I would. I would. I'll join the Air Force.
Yes.
Because you guys have it made, man. You
I
guys
know.
have it made. I mean, like, I was in Baumholder, Germany. I don't know if you ever heard of that. But if you didn't, don't look it up. It'll give you nightmares. But close to us was Kaiserslautern and Ramstein. And we went to Ramstein, man, and seen how you guys were living in Ramstein. And it just, like, that gave me nightmares. I was like, I don't know what I did with my life. I used to look in the mirror. I couldn't believe it. I was just, you guys have it made. And what 4, 5, 6-month deployments to Iraq? Yeah. Okay. Let me get off of that. I don't want to get depressed here. This is
Now,
about
if you
you.
want to get the Chair Force jokes out of the way, feel free. I'm sure you guys all know them.
I'll be honest with
So,
you too.
Peter,
Go Stryker.
No, go ahead, brother. Go, go.
I would say I'll be honest with you too. I initially tried to go to the Air Force myself.
Okay, okay. See,
So
so it's
he's
out
telling the
there.
truth. So he's telling the truth. All right, Strike.
Yep. Okay. So Peter, after you mentioned after having your daughter, you realized the feminine voice was missing from classic heroic storytelling. What specifically felt incomplete to you?
Well, when as any parent does, when they have a child, they want to enroll them into things that they love to see if the children will get interested in that. And I always love classic poetry, so like the Odyssey, Dante's Inferno, Beowulf, things like that. I remember, and I went to the Baseball Library, checked them out, and see if she would be interested in them. Then I started realizing, like, wait a minute, why would a young girl be interested in this? What reason, what rationale would she have for picking this book up if she knew a little bit about it? Unless it was forcibly assigned to her in school. So I'm like, well, wait a minute, where are the female heroines? Where we have the hero's journey and all these great heroes encompassed in the hero's journey. Where's the females? And I'm like looking around. Now there's female poetry, but there's really not existed. So that's why I decided, okay, I need to do something about that. When I have time, little by little, I wrote the Amazons, actually starting in the military because the story was in my head. And it developed in my head little by little. I finally started getting on a paper years later, and then made it into a full book. Yeah.
Okay. And that's not
Hmm.
tearing anything down, that's like expanding the story so more people could see themselves in it. Yeah, I like that.
So then, Peter,
Cool.
at that.
Uh-oh, we lost our co-host there. Well, let's just keep it rolling until we go back, shall we? So, as a father, you know, how intentional were you about creating stories your daughter could see herself inside of?
Well, every parent wants to encourage their daughter, and especially with it being underrepresented, the females in the hero's journey. I felt at least not only to my daughter, but older to the all the great females I worked around in the military. I mean, they put the same amount of effort, if not more, into the job on the daily. I will never forget a young female. I've been working maintenance, so we get really dirty. So it was especially rainy night. Everyone was soaked. She came in to the squadron, and she had grease and dirt all over her face from the jet. Okay,
Oh no.
I work on fighter jets, and she was all dirty, and she was pushing her box in, and she looked up at me and said, "I would have to work 3 times as hard to get the same amount of credit as the guys," and that hurt. That hurt because that could be my daughter doing that. That could be my daughter feeling that way. I felt it was up to me to actually represent the women in the hero's journey, because are they not picking up arms with us? Are they not in the hero's journey with us side by side? Because they are. Yeah,
Right,
we have to respect that and give them respect back.
right, right. I could see that. Yeah. And you chose lyrical poetry instead of traditional prose from the Amazons. So why was poetry the right format for the story?
Well, I've always loved poetry. Okay, I've always like now my influence is odd. Everyone's going to say who influenced your first poem, and they're going to say a poet, but mine isn't a poet necessarily, or has never looked upon a poet. David Coverdale from Whitesnake and the songs that Whitesnake made. Okay, that's the things that inspired me, because if you actually don't listen to music, read the lyrics. Oh, wait a minute, that's a poem. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. That's a beautiful poem. You listen to the music, but you never think about it as going hand in hand before. Yeah.
And that kind of takes a lot of courage too, because it asks more from the audience instead of watering down the art, and yeah. So big ups to
Well,
you, man.
lyrical poetry is, at least my LLP, is not for the weak of heart. It is a very demanding mistress that you have to attend to, because you have to be willing to sit there, waste an hour, and maybe get a paragraph. Okay, and not a lot of people willing to do that. It took a long time to write the Amazons. Years. It took years to write
It looks
in that
like it. It
format.
looks like
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Hmm. Peter, when you decide to add poetry with your storytelling, was there a certain type of problem that you may have researched that you was trying to solve? What made you want to do that?
Well, I do poetry is dying out of favor. Rap is not dying out of favor. I mean, you ask Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they have probably could quote you one or two songs verbatim, front to back, backward to forward. You know,
Hmm.
and I like okay, but it's still poetry. Rap is still poetry. So we need to reinvent poetry to bring it back into this century. So that's why I developed LLP. It's still recognized as poetry, but it resembles rap closely enough to it will be recognizable to them and they'll understand it. And they'll actually be able to say that this is from our generation. Okay, this is something that's developed from us. And they'll be able to look back at it, maybe, hopefully, God willing, years later, when they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, they'll say, this is stuff from my time.
Hmm.
And not a lot of people know this, but Tupac, I don't know, this just came to me. Tupac, his rhymes was written in poetry,
Hmm.
and he actually, when he started, speaking, it just came out like rap, but it was actually just, poetry. A lot of people don't know that.
A lot, I've had a friend, and if you're doing it right, especially with rap or LLP or poetry, if it sticks to the person's head. My friend Maddie, who does the Tales podcast, and I help her out for every once in a while, she read the Amazons, and then she had taken a phone call, and then she inadvertently kept rhyming without intending to do it. And then she calls me back like, "What did you do to me? Did you brainwash me?" She was surprised. She just kept rhyming without wanting to do it, but it
Right,
stayed in her head. Yeah.
right, right. And I got to tell everybody, Tupac is my favorite rapper of all time. Maybe that's why, because he's deep, man. He's deep.
But yeah, very deep.
So I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Is it the Karupi's curse or the Karupi's curse?
The Karupi's curse. Yeah.
Karupi's curse. Okay, that pulls from ancient South American mythology.
Yes.
What draws you to mythological systems outside of the Western storytelling?
Well, I actually came across a lot of the story. Well, I developed the story after researching the Amazon. So, like, wait a minute, there's a lot more in South America that's been unexplored, just besides the Amazons. And the fact that they actually existed, there's a lot of more mythological creatures like the Karupi. There's a joke going around now. If you tell a Latina down there, about the Karupi, they'll know it, because if a young woman has a particularly ugly baby, they won't blame it on the father and say, "Oh, you made it with the Karupi."
Oh,
And they blame it on the Karupi.
oh, that's messed up. Oh, that. Well, you heard it here, folks.
And Peter, so your Sigma series, your Sigma SWAT series, it explores spiritual duality, right? Which draws, Gnostic text. Did you expect that matter to like change people's way of thinking? What was your reason for that?
Well, I knew after 2020, and I'm sure a lot of people agree with me, 2020 was a weird time, the whole COVID era. I always like to think the best of humanity. I try to, and I'm sure a lot of people agree with me when they do, they do as well. But when I saw how quick people were putting on a mask without questioning it, like, wait a minute, is this the right thing to do? And I like, oh wow, you're really asleep, and you're really asleep, and you're really asleep. So like, wait a minute. So it woke me up, like, okay, there has to be a way to inform people. And by inform, I mean just put a little spark of knowledge in their head. You don't have to give them that 4-inch book of scientific evidence that has dust on it from the library. Put it in a format that Joe Sixpack will enjoy and understand, but put that spark of knowledge in it. And that's why I decided to make it a graphic novel. And I decided to use the Sigma Squad and the Gnostic teachings, because it's a perfect way to drill home that there's different levels of humanity. There are people here in this world that are psychopathic, narcissistic, sociopathic. Okay, I mean, we've all heard of times when you question yourself, how could have someone that's human done that? And that enters your mind. You don't necessarily say it out loud, and and if you look at the Gnostic teachings, not everyone is necessarily human in the traditional sense that we understand, and we have to understand that these people exist around us. And in order to drill that home, I'm putting it in the form of a graphic novel that they'll understand.
Yes, sir.
Makes sense to me.
Yes, sir. And I'm not about to promote the ID channel, but yeah, we're talking about psychopaths, and I'm seeing a lot lately on that show. I love the ID channel, but I'm not going to get into that right now. And you're a man of many talents. I gotta say, I gotta say this. God bless you. You're also the lead guitarist for the Angelics, and currently working on your first album. How does music give you a different outlet, than writing?
Well, let me update you first. Album's out right now, and I can send
The
you a picture.
album's out.
Yeah,
Okay.
album's out. Just go to your favorite music app. Type in the name of the album is Hazing Hades, and the name of the band is the Angelics with 2 L's. But I'll send it to you guys after the show if you want to listen to it. But that happened as an accident. Okay, if you had said to me 1 year ago, "Hey, you're gonna put out an album," I would have joked like, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not." I'm already too busy, doing with all these other things. I'm currently writing a book as well. So I'm like, wow, okay. I'm spinning a lot of plates, and I'm just making it work. And then this comes online, and like, it was odd the way it happened. Like I said, I didn't go looking for it. I hired a good friend of mine, Andrew Giordani. She's a very talented voice actress, to be a producer for my revamp of my Amazon's audiobook. We hired about 30 voice actors. We got all the sound effects squared away. It's going to sound like you're listening to a movie, basically. And we're going to make it high-end. Every high-end movie or audiobook, I decided, okay, let's do a soundtrack. Let's get some songs on there, So I went looking for a band when Andrea said, "You got this. I'm going to go looking for a band." And I came across a gentleman named Leo Sather out of Dusseldorf, Germany, on Upwork.com. Okay, and he said he's a vocalist. I said, okay, you could find so much talent on there in Upwork. It's not even funny. And I listened to his audition. Like, wow, okay, you're good. He sounds a lot like Joe Cocker, old school. And like great, but I need a full band. So he brought in Alice Richter, the drummer, and Max Lang on keyboards because he already knew them. They had a little '80s tribute band going over there, and I'm like, great, let's make it work. And we did 10 songs together. Some of them for the Sigma Squad are on the website if you want to go to the website and listen to them. But it worked out really well. I mean, we all get along. We're all conservative, somewhat Christian-minded gentlemen that also have our opinions about the church and religion. So it worked out really well. Now, after the contract ended, the 10 songs were done with. I was willing to go my own way, but then that's when the lead singer Leo said, "Hey, do you want to put out an album?" And I thought about could I do this? And I signed on to do it. Yeah, I signed on to do it.
And let me say, my good man, what a good move. What a good move. Because, music, I know for me, it lets emotion, how can I say it, move without having to explain myself first,
Yep.
So
Yep.
it
And a lot of people
explains
will say
everything
that
for me.
they're the highest transcended time they've ever been is when they've been listening to music.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And Peter, I have to get with you offline sometime, if you will. I've been trying to learn how to play the guitar for years now, and I don't know if it's because my fingers are too fat or what it is, but I can't get this part up here.
You have to memorize the fretboard without looking at it.
Right.
Yeah. You have
But
to
it's like
memorize the fretboard without looking at it.
sometimes like somebody was trying to teach me and I was trying to put like these fingers so close together and it kept like kind of overlapping each other and I couldn't really hit the strings properly.
That's when
I
you have
don't
to modify your finger positioning for each note. So if it's not working for you, you're going to have to modify your finger positioning. Okay? You can make it work. I mean, I'm sure you've all seen people play the guitar with their feet. So they've had to modify
what
every note. Yes, there are people that play the guitar with their feet. So they've had
I've
to
never seen
modify
that.
every note, every chord, okay, different for the feet. So you just have to modify that particular chord that you're saying you can't work just for you and learn it just for
Okay.
you that way.
Okay. All right, cool.
All right. All right, so Peter, so you're like you said, you're a man of many talents. So you do music, poetry, storytelling. So when did you find all this? After the military, did you decide to make this dig into it and really get into your identity?
Well, I would say, forcibly retired, okay,
Okay.
because I refused to take the COVID vaccine. So I was forcibly
Wow.
retired back in 2021. And that's when I decided, okay, I've served the American people for 20 years. It's time to serve myself and humanity. My desire to serve humanity needs to go higher now. I need to go full throttle, as we say in the Air Force. Yeah.
Hmm. And so each one of those things, does it serve to you as your music, poetry, your storytelling? Does it have a different, each one have a different mission, or they're all one and the same for you?
They're all a piece of me, okay? But they all have a mission. Yes, a mission. When I see something that's wrong, something that needs to be addressed, that's when I look at it, evaluate it, and decide whether or not I'm going to go into it and I do something about it. Yeah,
Hmm.
to make the world
That's,
for the better.
and you know what? I think it's amazing for you to be able to get into your creative side and really indulge into that creativity and say, hey, this is me. These are the things I want to give to the world is creativity.
Right.
So that's one thing. So kudos to you. Hats off to you for doing that.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely.
Is that not the utmost expression of God Himself? Is your creativity through God?
Hmm.
Leonardo da Vinci's paintings and
Oh man.
art, all the beautiful artwork out there. It's just one of those things where you're connected to the source. When you're
Right.
doing that.
And and just like you said, I think if we don't utilize that creativity, like you said, I think that's when depression sets in.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? When you can't create whatever it is that you were meant to create, when you suppress that, that's when I don't know. That's when the confusion of what your identity is, the fear, the depression, because you're not doing what you're set forth to do. And so I think
I
that's
think a
great that
lot
you.
of it, especially for younger people that don't have that identity yet, is finding the spark. Once you find that spark that you have inside of you, hold on to it, and fan the fire and go with it, and don't ever stop because that's your talent. I always tell younger people that if you ever had a time in your life when time passed by and you had no conception of it, like you look up and 4 hours, at the clock, 4 hours just went by. That's a sign from the universe, like, okay, that's what you're supposed to be doing. That's your passion right there, because you were in your zone.
Hmm.
And
I'm thinking about. Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
just
My bad.
no, I just learned something new. Just one more question for you. So I didn't know you had, forcibly out because of your, vaccine. So after 20 years and you gave all that, how was that transition for you, knowing that they would just put, kind of kick you to the curve?
It if they hadn't happened, I'd probably still be like in reserves, right now. Just part time, but I'd probably still be in uniform. But since it's not going to happen, I'm going to serve humanity now in a higher capacity.
Hmm. Makes sense.
And you know what's kind of crazy about that, Peter? I don't know if you know now. I think Trump just put something in order where service members don't have to do that anymore.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, they don't have to. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Hmm.
crazy. Wow, wow. I didn't. Not, yeah, I'm sorry that happened to you, man. That's 20 years, and then they tell you you got to get out over a shot. That's
And you know what? It's a blessing. It's a blessing, really.
Right.
It is.
Right, right,
Right.
right.
Otherwise,
right.
all these other things wouldn't have happened.
That's right.
Right, exactly. That's true.
It's your story.
Yeah.
Okay. I forgot what I was about to ask. It has something to do with art, but it'll probably come back to me later. For someone listening, Peter, who feels disconnected after service or lost after a major life shift, what would you tell them about using creativity as a way forward?
Well, I highly suggest it. I know a lot of veterans when they maybe were like 18 or even some, uh, going in early at 17. Okay, so they never quite got to find themselves per se. So I would say when you get out, use the opportunity now that you've gotten out to start finding yourself. So start going into the creative world. Start looking at poetry, start looking at music, looking at rap, start looking at things like that to express yourself. I highly encourage it. And like LLP, I've found with vets, because it takes such concentration, and music as well. A lot of ones that are diagnosed with PTSD, like myself, or other conditions, they start to fade away because it takes so much concentration. So it's sort of like the symptoms subside. Yeah. And then there's no drugs.
That's the message right there, brother. That's the message right there. It's about survival and meaning, people. It's about survival and meaning. You look like you're thinking of something, John. What you thinking about?
Well, no, I'm just just this story, like, I'm really amazed, and I'm really, I know this may be funny, but I'm really proud of him because, he's done a lot of people after the military are wrapped around that word retirement and don't really continue to create because
Right.
no one's telling them to.
Right.
For you to get out and still have this mind frame of thankfulness, gratitude, I don't sense resentment. A lot of people are still passing past blame, but you like to, you kind of recovered. You know what I mean? Like when I brought that up, that's a traumatic experience after 20 years. Someone to tell you to get going and you to say, "Hey, I accept it. I wouldn't be able to do these things I do now." And
Right.
that's what that's what I'm proud of to hear because that doesn't define you. You're still defining yourself. Like you're still creating your future, and that's empowering.
I'm still
Yeah.
serving humanity, just in a greater capacity now.
That's right.
I mean, before when you're in uniform, you both, all of us know you couldn't necessarily say what you wanted to say. You had to think about what to get you in trouble. But now I can say what I want to say, so it's a blessing.
Right. Right.
That's a good point. You're free
That's
now.
true. That's true. I know we went over a little bit. I know we was only booked for 30 minutes. Sorry if I took over a little bit of your time, Peter.
Oh, it's fine.
But, I appreciate your honesty and the work you're putting into the world, man. And to everyone listening, your story doesn't end just because one chapter closed. Take it from Peter. Look at him. In this war, each one reach one. We're all recovering. Anything, my man, my brother?
Hey man, just thank you for coming on the War Podcast, brother, and keep being an example for others and your daughter. 'Cause I think you're doing an amazing job, bro.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I enjoyed talking to you guys, really.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
The invasion of Iraq is a good time to take stock. Since the war began, 3,192 U.S. troops have been killed, more than 24,000 wounded. At least 50,000 Iraqi civilians have died.
It's war.